Allahumma yassir wa la tu'assir. Barakallahu feekum. All right, now we're going to continue in this excerpt from Al-Itqaan fi Ulum al-Quran by Imam As-Siyutiyy. And the title of this excerpt is Al-Muhkam wal-Mutashaabih. We started this last week, and I think you might have perceived the massive amount of information is packed into these words here. I'd actually like to just review what we went over and maybe add some clarity for you. So the author said the 43rd type concerning the Muhkam and the Mutashaabih. So Muhkam, we have it here translated as explicit or decisive, and Mutashaabih is ambiguous or cryptic. And you're going to see, sometimes we're just not even going to translate these words. We're just going to say Muhkam and Mutashaabih. And sometimes we'll translate them. We started with this ayah that names these two types of verses. هو الذي أنزل عليك الكتاب منه آيات محكمات هن أم الكتاب وأخر متشابهات. He it is who sent down to you the book, O Muhammad. In it are verses that are muhkam, clear, explicit. They are the foundation of the book. That means the reference of the other verses in the book. وَأُخَرُ مُتَشَابِهَاتٍ, and others are mutashabih, ambiguous. The way that's worded, وَأُخَرُ, and others are, that gives the impression that they are not primary. And that's the case. The primary ones are the ones who are mentioned first, the explicit, clear ones. The ones that are susceptible to more than one meaning are not the primary ones. They need to be referred back to the explicit, clear ones, because there is no contradiction in the Quran. Had the Quran been from other than Allah, the people would have found it loaded with contradictions. It doesn't have any contradictions. But that's not going to stop the Orientalist from claiming that there's contradictions in the Quran, or a Christian also who looks for those. There are Christians, they search through the Quran to find contradictions. Then they find something so obscure and small, and they say, "Ha! I found this," and then they make a whole dissertation about it, and then we'll debunk them. There's not a contradiction. You only wanted it to be. Okay, so there's two types of verses in the Quran. We mentioned that some said that all of the Quran is muhkam, and they cited this ayah. Kitabun uhkimat ayatuh. A book whose verses were made muhkam. So here, I'm not translating it. Here, muhkam means perfected. Not explicit per se, but perfected. A book whose verses have been given mastery, perfection. That's the meaning of muhkam here. So this is the real meaning of the entire Quran being muhkam. That all of its verses are perfected. There's no contradiction in them, and there is nothing less than eloquent in the Quran. Every single ayat of the Quran, every single verse of the Quran is eloquent. And some are more eloquent than others. As opposed to being corny or improper language or weak. Nothing like that is in the Quran. And there's not even any joke in the Quran or like something funny. The whole thing is serious. وَمَا هُوَ بِالْهَزْلِ. It is not a joke. And some said that all of the Quran is Mutashaabih. And what that means, what the ayah means, they said that citing an ayah. Kitaban mutashabiha, a mutashabih book. What that means here is that the verses of the Quran resemble each other in truth and in miraculousness. And I cited for you also, As-Siyutiyy logged for us. So I read to you that some said this verse that we started with doesn't prove that the Quran is limited to only two types of verses. Isn't that the impression you might get if you read the ayah? From it, there are Muhkam verses. They are the base of the book, and others are ambiguous. So you might say, therefore, there's two types of verses in the Quran. That's actually what we say. That's what we learned from the Shaykh. There are two types of verses in the Quran. As-Siyutiyy logged that some said this doesn't explicitly prove that there's only two types. Like they're saying, yes, there are two types. That doesn't mean there's not a third type. What if someone asked you, if you have all your fingers, you have 10 fingers. What if someone asked you, do you have 2 fingers? You should say yes. Because if you have 10 fingers, then for sure you have 2. So some are saying this doesn't negate that there's a third category. And then he cited an ayah. لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ مَا نُزِّلَ إِلَيْهِمْ, so that you clarify for the people what has been sent down to them, O Muhammad. How does this prove his point? According to him, this speaker, who's him, As-Siyutiyy didn't say, he just said, some say. Some said. قَالَ بَعْضُهُمْ, some said. How does this ayah prove the point of someone who is saying that there's not necessarily only two types of verses in the Quran? He's saying, because the ayah, لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ, so that you clarify for the people, the one who said this said, knowing the clear verses, knowing the muhkam verses, it does not depend on clarification because they're already clear. And the mutashaabih, the ambiguous verses, they're not expected to be clarified. They're going to stay ambiguous. So then which verses are the Prophet going to clarify? It's like he's saying, whatever the Prophet is clarifying then is not muhkam and is not mutashaabih. Because muhkam is already clear and mutashaabih won't become clear. That's what he said. I didn't take any criticism of the statement here, but one thing comes to my mind, which is that the scholars of usul said that what's clear can be clarified. Because something is clear doesn't mean that it cannot be clarified. Yeah. So if something is clear, that doesn't mean it cannot be clarified. So take that. Now, That's an introduction there. What's his introduction? His introduction is to give you the ayah from the Quran that confirms these two types of verses, to give you the ayah that proves that the entire Quran is muhkam and the ayah that proves that the entire Quran is mutashaabih, and to explain what those mean. Because for sure, some of the Quran is muhkam and some of the Quran is mutashaabih. So how could the entire Quran be muhkam and the entire Quran be mutashaabih? When you explain muhkam in another way, then it's valid that all of it is muhkam. And when you explain mutashabih in another way, then it's valid that all of it will be mutashabih. That's why sometimes I don't want to translate it. Or to put its meaning. And I'll keep repeating for you what Imam Al-Raghib Al-Asbahani said. He said, tafsir concerns explaining the meanings of single words, whereas ta'wil concerns explaining the meanings of statements, yani, phrases, sentences, and concepts. Not that no one else said otherwise, but his statement is beneficial for us to help you to see how can you explain the word one way and then explain the word another way. That's tafsir. According to Al-Raghib Al-Asbahani, the tafsir is to explain the meaning of this word, meaning in this spot or that spot. One word can have different meanings in different spots. Take the word ayah in the Quran. If you translate it, literally means sign. The ayah could refer to the miracles of the prophets. Depends on what's being said. The ayah could refer to the verses of the Quran. The ayah could refer to the verses of the Torah. The ayah could refer to the things that Allah created in heavens and earth. So it's not just going to have the same meaning every time it appears. And merely translating the word is not the way to explain the Quran. So his introduction is to give us the ayah that proves that there's these two types of verses in the Quran, and to give us the ayah that proves that all of the Quran is muhkam, and the ayah that proves that all of the Quran is mutashabih, and then to explain what that means, what muhkam and mutashabih means in those spots. And in his introduction, he gave us that some said this doesn't prove that there is not a third kind. And then they produced an ayah. But, like I told you, if something is clear, it can still be clarified. The scholars of Usul said so. So that's the introduction. Then he started giving different sayings about how to define these two types. Yani, so that's out of the way. Now we're going to say there's two types of verses in the Quran, Muhkam and Mutashaabih. We're not going to say here in this context, all of it is Muhkam or all of it is Mutashaabih. We're going to resort to what we started with and say some of it is Muhkam and some of it is Mutashaabih. And when Allah said, Hunna Ummul Kitab, they are the base or the foundation or the reference of the book about the Muhkam verses. I already told you this means they are the reference for the unclear verses, and also it means they are the majority of the verses. So most of the verses of the Quran, they are Muhkam. So he gave different definitions that were offered about the difference between the Muhkam and the Mutashabih. So he said, As-Siyutiyy, rahimahullah, he said that it was said that the Muhkam is that which its intended meaning is known, either obviously or by interpretation, and the Mutashaabih is that which Allah has kept its knowledge to himself. And he reserved its knowledge for himself. Such as the commencement of the hour and the emergence of the impostor and the disjointed letters at the beginnings of the chapters. And this is close to what we learned from the Shaykh, but there's something in here that it's not what I learned. From the Shaykh, that is. I learned it here. But in terms of what the Shaykh says and repeats, I don't know about the Shaykh saying that if its intended meaning is known by interpretation, then it's muhkam. When he said, whoever said this saying, the muhkam is that which its intended meaning is known, obviously, yes, the Shaykh says that. And when he says the mutashaabih is that which Allah has kept its knowledge to himself, such as the commencement of the hour and the emergence of the impostor and the disjointed letters at the beginnings of the chapters, yes, that is a kind of mutashaabih. That's a kind of mutashaabih. Not all of the mutashaabih. The Shaykh taught us that there's two kinds of ambiguity in the Quran. Two kinds of ambiguity. This is one of two kinds. Now, actually, this statement, it signals to the two kinds of ambiguity. Because one kind of ambiguity is the kind that can be deciphered or decoded, if you want. And the other kind of ambiguity is the kind that cannot. What we learned from the Shaykh is that the kind that can be deciphered is mutashaabih. What did this sayer say? Muhkam is that which its intended meaning is known, either obviously or by interpretation. He says bit-ta'wil. In the Arabic says bit-ta'wil. So what we know, what we learned, what we took from the Shaykh, is that it's the mutashaabih that needs ta'wil. So this one is defining, is including something under muhkam that, according to what we know, what we took from the Shaykh, is mutashaabih. So this sayer is saying, if its meaning is known by way of the ta'wil, then it's muhkam. So this, I'm not aware of the Shaykh saying that. I am aware of the Shaykh saying contrary to that. And the mutashaabih is that which Allah has kept its knowledge to himself, such as these matters here. This is one kind of mutashaabih. So, mashallah, if the Shaykh explained muhkam and mutashaabih perfectly, then this definition is lacking. And it was said that the muhkam is that which its meaning is evident and the mutashaabih is its opposite. Okay, that complies with what the Shaykh taught us. And it was said, the muhkam is that which does not bear of interpretation but a single meaning, while the mutashaabih is that which allows for multiple possible meanings. Yes, that's what the Shaykh says. That's the definition he takes. And it was said that the muhkam is that which has an intelligible meaning, and the mutashaabih is to the contrary. Intelligible here says ma'qulul ma'na. It's translated as intelligible. Ma'qulul ma'na. Conceivable is the meaning. Rational. A rational meaning. What does this mean? Maybe someone would say, is it possible to say there's something in the Quran that does not have a rational meaning? Well, you need to know what's meant by the statement here. What this means to the one who said it is there's things that our minds are neutral about them without the revelation confirming for us how it should be. And he explains it. He says it himself. He says, according to this sayer, the Mutashaabih is contrary to that, meaning not intelligible, not rational meaning. Like what? What would not have a rational meaning? Such as the specific numbers of the prayers. How many prayers to pray? 5 prayers per day. And it was revealed to Adam to pray 1 prayer a day. It was revealed to Moses to pray 2 prayers a day. It was revealed to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam to pray 50 prayers a day. Then it was reduced to 5 prayers a day. Where do our minds play any part in here? Nowhere. Whatever Allah revealed about that is valid. There is nothing mental here about the validity of that. Or Yani, take for example the case of the animals in zakat. If you have 5 camels, you're gonna pay a sheep. 10 camels, 15 camels, 20 camels. You might say, okay, it goes by 5s. 25 camels, yeah, go by 5. But then 36 camels, then 46 camels, then 61 camels, then 76 camels, then 91 camels, then 121 camels. Where are these numbers coming from? From the revelation. Our minds have no hand here. This is what they meant by something not having or being ma'kulul ma'na, which is translated here as intelligible or having rational meaning. If you have a better word than this, feel free to offer it, inshallah. So he says, such as the specific numbers of the prayers, also the rakats, 3 rakats for this prayer, 4 for this prayer, 2 for this prayer, 1 for this prayer. And some prayers, it's 1 prayer, they have many salams. Like Taraweeh. Taraweeh prayer is a prayer containing many salams. Our minds have no part here. And the designation of fasting for Ramadan rather than Sha'ban or any other month, etc. Like that. And wudu, wash your face, wash your arms, wipe your head, wash your feet. Why? For urinating, defecating, touching the skin of a woman, etc. Not for bleeding though, not for nose running though, for example. Not for eating. But what if Allah revealed to make wudu if you eat cooked food? Then so be it. Then that would be a wudu invalidator. Our minds have no part here. So says Al-Mawardi. Okay. So this is not the definition that the Shaykh goes by. But if you want to understand these quotes well, what you need to understand is the general concept of being clear or unclear. Not necessarily that this verse is clear, this verse is unclear. No, broader than that. If you want to understand these sayings, understand something broader than to just say, this verse is clear, this verse is unclear. Make it more like concept, abstract. Something is clear, something is unclear. What these quotes have in common is that the Mutashaabih is unclear to some degree, 1 degree or another degree. We are not saying, for example, that because we don't know mentally, we have no rational reference for how many prayers there should be and how many rakats they should be, that this makes it mutashabi. We don't say that. So you want to understand the quote. Why would this sayer say that? What does he understand from mutashabi? There's a lack of clarity. So he is attempting to explain to you where is there in the religion something that has some ambiguity for us or lack of clarity for us? According to him, this is what it is. And it was said the Muhkam is what is independent, while the Mutashaabih is what is not independent. It must be referred back to something else. This complies with what we have learned. Yani, we have learned this because what we learned is that this ayah that we started with, Hunna Ummul Kitab, they are the base of the book, means they are the reference. And being the reference is what that speaker meant by being independent. وَأُخَرُ مُتَشَابِهَاتٍ, and others are ambiguous, means they are referred back to the reference verses. So those are the dependent ones. So that complies with what we learned. And it was said, the Muhkam is that which its interpretation is its very revelation, while the Mutashaabih is that which is not known except through interpretation. That complies with what we learned. The Muhkam is that which its interpretation is its very revelation. This means its wording is clear as it was revealed. It was revealed crystal clear. And the Mutashaabih, its meaning is not known by the mere way its words are revealed. So it needs to be interpreted, decoded if you want, deciphered. That's compliant also with what we learned. And I mentioned for you, it's just that sometimes some statements are better than other statements. They are more explicit or more direct, for example, even if they might be all saying the same thing. And it was said, the Muhkam is that which its wording was not repeated, and its opposite is the Mutashaabih. And the Shaykh says about this one, no way. So it doesn't accept. And it was said, the Muhkam consists of the obligations, the promises, and the threats, while the Mutashaabih consists of the stories and the parables. And the Shaykh said, this is obviously invalid. The obligations, the promises, and the threats. So whoever said this thing, it's as if he sees that the obligations is, this is clear. And the promise of Allah is his promise to admit the obedient to paradise. His threat is his threat to punish the disobedient. The speaker, the sayer of this saying, sees that these matters are clear. The obligations and the promise and the threat. While the Mutashaabih consists of the stories and the parables. Parables meaning the examples. And the Shaykh said this one is obviously wrong. Rahimahullah ta'ala. And Ibn Abi Hatim narrated through the route of Ali ibn Abi Talha from Ibn Abbas that he said, the Muhkamat are its abrogating verses. So, keeping with the theme that what's Muhkam is clear, and what's Mutashaabih is not clear, then abrogating first of all, the Shaykh, he doesn't agree with this quote in the first place. We took that last time. Before I go further, this quote I'm explaining for you right now, the Shaykh doesn't agree, rahimahullah, but I just want to explain for you, repeat for you some things about this, and also maybe mention some other benefits. So it was reported about Ibn Abbas that he said the Muhkams are the abrogating verses. So that's going to be clear. Yani, according to that, those verses that cancel or abolish something that was revealed previously. Well, that means it's muhkam though. Yeah, the fact that it is abrogating something else means it's muhkam. So the Shaykh doesn't agree with this definition. and its lawful and unlawful rulings. What it says here, وَحَلَالُهُ وَحَرَامُهُ. Let's just take out the word rulings. It's lawful and unlawful. It's lawful and it's unlawful. That of the Quran. The lawful of the Quran and the unlawful of the Quran. That means it's clear, explicit, because an ayah is proving that something is lawful or something is unlawful. Its limits, the hudud, yani, the punishments, its obligations, and that which is to be believed in, and that which is to be believed in and acted upon. Yani, believed in and practiced. Let's say practiced. That which is to be believed in and practiced. Now this mere part here, that which is believed in and practiced, that's muhkam, that's true. That is muhkam. Laysa kamithlihi shay is believed in and practiced. Practiced with the meaning of that we don't just say, whatever this means, we believe in it. Rather, we elaborate and we delve into this ayah and we pull it apart in explaining it, that is. And so we are believing and practicing here. And according to this quote, the Mutashaabih are the abrogated verses. So if it's abrogated, means it's going to be unclear. Well, could be though that someone doesn't recognize the fact that it's abrogated. He sees it in the Quran and thinks that it's applicable. But it would be abrogated, it's not applicable. Is this why it is claimed here, it is said here, attributed to Ibn Abbas, that an abrogated verse is mutashabih? Because it's still there in the Quran, although it's inapplicable? And its advance and delay, and for sure people have fallen into mistakes by not knowing that something in the Quran is abrogated. And that's why it's a condition for someone to be a mujtahid that he knows the abrogating and the abrogated. It's advance and delay. The taqdeem wa ta'khir. Is this unclear? The taqdeem and ta'khir, the advance and delay, I gave you an example of that last time. There's other examples in the Quran. I'll repeat the example I gave you about Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam. He said, بل فعله كبيرهم هذا فاسألوهم إن كانوا ينطقون. Rather, this biggest one of them, this biggest idol did it. So ask them if they can speak. By applying taqdeem and ta'khir, advance and delay to this, then the way to explain it would be that he's saying, إن كانوا ينطقون فقد فعله كبيرهم هذا فاسألوهم. If they can speak, then this biggest one of them did it. So ask them. Or another example is in Surah Al-Baqarah, the actual story of the Baqarah. وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِقَوْمِهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُكُمْ أَن تَذْبَحُوا بَقَرَةً. When Moses said to his people, indeed, Allah commands you to slaughter a cow. The story doesn't start there. The story starts several verses later. The story starts several verses later. وَإِذْ قَتَلْتُمْ نَفْسًا. And when you killed someone, you Jews, etc. And then you argued about it. So then you went to Moses to say to him, we want to find out who's the killer. So he told you, indeed, Allah commands you to sacrifice a cow. So the beginning of the story is not the beginning of the narrative that's presented. You know how you would see sometimes a movie and they start not at the beginning, and then later they will show you what happened in the beginning? So something like that. That's called taqdeem and ta'khir. Is that unclear? Oh, you might not know what you are seeing there. Like you might not know that actually, وَإِذْ قَتَلْتُمْ نَفْسًا, that this part is the beginning of the story that you just finished reading. You read the story to the end and then the beginning came. And it's parables. So I wanted to give you an example. Here's an example of parable, if you accept that word, parable. The examples of the Quran, the examples, the allegories. Allah says, مثلهم كمثل الذي استوقد نارا. Their description, so I want to just try to say it by like literal translation, so you see how it appears, what it looks like. مثلهم كمثل الذي استوقد نارا. Their description is the likeness of he who kindled a fire. Those are the hypocrites. Their description is like someone who lit a fire. فَلَمَّا أَضَاءَتْ مَا حَوْلَهُ. Then when it illuminated what is around him, ذَهَبَ اللَّهُ بِنُورِهِمْ وَتَرَكَهُمْ فِي ظُلُمَاتٍ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ. Allah took away their light and left them in darknesses unseeing. صُمٌّ بُكْمٌ عُمْيٌ فَهُمْ لَا يَرْجِعُونَ. Deaf, mute, and blind, so they will not return. أَوْ كَصَيِّبٍ مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ. Or like a downpour from the sky. فِيهِ ظُلُمَاتٌ وَرَعْدٌ وَبَرْقٌ. Therein is darkness, thunder, and lightning. يَجْعَلُونَ أَصَابِعَهُمْ فِي آذَانِهِمْ مِنَ الصَّوَاعِقِ حَذَرَ الْمَوْتِ. Putting their fingers in their ears from the thunderclaps. From the thunderclaps that are accompanied by lightning, for fear of death. وَاللَّهُ مُحِيطٌ بِالْكَافِرِينَ. And Allah is encompassing of the unbelievers. يَكَادُ الْبَرْقُ يَخْطَفُ أَبْصَارَهُمْ. The lightning almost snatches away their visions. كُلَّمَا أَضَاءَ لَهُمْ مَشَوْا فِيهِ. Whenever it illuminates for them, they walk in it. وَإِذَا أَظْلَمَ عَلَيْهِمْ قَامُوا. And when darkness falls upon them, they stand still. وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَذَهَبَ بِسَمْعِهِمْ وَأَبْصَارِهِمْ. And had Allah willed, He would have taken away their hearing and their sight. إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. Surely Allah is, over anything possible, very powerful. So, you can imagine here, someone lighting a fire. It was dark. He lit a fire. Now he has some light around him. Then the fire went out, and some people are stuck in a downpour of rain, and there's lightning and thunder, and they're putting their fingers in their ears. And when there's light, they walk, and when the light goes away, they stop. What does all of this mean? So it needs interpretation. Mathaluhum, their description in hypocrisy, their case of being hypocrites, كَمَثَلِ الَّذِي اسْتَوْقَدَ نَارًا, is the likeness of he who kindled a fire in darkness. فَلَمَّا أَضَاءَتْ مَا حَوْلَهُ, then when it illuminated what is around him so that he could see and get cozy. So they are hypocrites. This means they're pretending to be Muslims. So this is referring to these hypocrites, their display of Islam. They benefited from it. They got benefits. They got Muslim benefits. They shared in the spoils of war. They married Muslim women, and they're not even Muslims. So it's not really a valid marriage. But they're going to get away with that when it illuminated what is around them or around him so that he can get cozy and see. Yani, he benefits from acting like a Muslim. ذهب الله بنورهم, Allah took away their light upon death. Yani, Allah made them die. وتركهم في ظلمات لا يبصرون, and he left them in darknesses, unseeing. Yani, he leaves them in torture. So you see, this needs interpretation. صُمٌّ بُكْمٌ عُمْيٌ فَهُمْ لَا يَرْجِعُونَ, deaf from hearing the truth, mute from speaking goodness, and blind to the path of truth. So they will not return from their hypocrisy. In this piece of the ayah, according to Al-Tabari, this is a case of taqdeem and ta'khir itself. This, in meaning, goes after ayah 16. In Al-Baqarah, we started reciting ayah 17. Then comes ayah 18. According to Al-Tabari, ayah 18 in meaning is really before ayah 17. It comes after 16. As if it's ayah 16, then ayah 18, then ayah 17. أَوْ كَصَيِّبٍ مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ, or their description is like people in a downpour from the sky, a downpour from the clouds. فِيهِ ظُلُمَاتٍ, therein is darknesses. The darknesses is the blasphemy. That's its tafsir. وَرَعْدٍ, and thunder. That's God's threat. وَبَرْقٍ, and lightning. That's clear arguments. يَجْعَلُونَ أَصَابِعَهُمْ فِي آذَانِهِمْ مِنَ الصَّوَاعِقِ حَذَرَ الْمَوْتِ, putting their fingers in their ears from the thunderclaps. From the thunderclaps that are accompanied by lightning, for fear of death. Meaning, they are afraid that they're going to like Islam. They don't want to be Muslims, but there's something appealing about it. So they are resisting. وَاللَّهُ مُحِيطٌ بِالْكَافِرِينَ, and Allah, in knowledge and power, is encompassing of the unbelievers. يَكَادُ الْبَرْقُ يَخْطَفُ أَبْصَارَهُمْ, the lightning almost snatches away their visions. What's the lightning? Clear arguments. كُلَّمَا أَضَاءَ لَهُم مَشَوْا فِيهِ, whenever the lightning illuminates for them, they walk in it. Yani, when they hear something that they can accept, they go with it. وَإِذَا أَظْلَمَ عَلَيْهِمْ قَامُوا, and when darkness falls upon them, they stand still. Meaning, when they hear what they don't want to accept, then they don't take it. وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَذَهَبَ بِسَمْعِهِمْ وَأَبْصَارِهِمْ, and had Allah willed, He would have taken away their outward hearing and their outward sight, like He took away their inward hearing and their inward sight. إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ, surely Allah is over anything possible, very powerful. So that's a method from the Quran. I wanted to share it with you so you can have more idea of what's meant here by this quote. وَأَقْسَامُهُ, and its oaths or its swears of the Quran. And I gave you the example of وَالْفَجْرِ وَلَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ وَالشَّفْعِ وَالْوَتْرِ وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَسْرِ هَلْ فِي ذَلِكَ قَسَمٌ لِذِي حِجْرٍ. Allah swears by the dawn and by 10 nights. What's 10 nights? وَالشَّفْعِ وَالْوَتْرِ, and by the even and the odd. What's the even and the odd? He's swearing by 10 nights. That's indefinite. By 10 nights, not the 10 nights. If you have a translation that says by the 10 nights, remove the. وَلَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ, and by 10 nights. What are those? وَالشَّفْعِ وَالْوَتْرِ, and by the even and the odd. What's that? So this is what's meant by putting this here as mutashaabih, according to this quote here. وَمَا يُؤْمَنُ بِهِ وَلَا يُعْمَلُ بِهِ, and that which is to be believed in but not practiced. This part is for sure correct. What is believed and not practiced, meaning like when we say al-istiwa, whatever it means, we believe in it, and don't go any further than that. That's as far as we got last time. So I actually didn't add anything new for you except to just clarify that when I listened back to the recording, I thought the lesson went so fast and had so much information in it that I wanted to go back and repeat something for you. So let's stop there, inshallah ta'ala. Do you have any question I can answer for you?